All right, here's my audience of at least 5 people. Thank you guys for joining. Chris is going to be doing our camera recording. Okay. All right. Thank you guys all for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm going to give, the topic was a personal belief you might have in giving a speech on it. And my personal belief is you shouldn't have sex before marriage, okay? I believe this is a really big problem that largely by society and even in the Christian community, we really ignored too much. 3% of Americans, according to waitingtilmarriage.com, wait until marriage to have sex. Only 3%. While only 65 identify themselves as a Christian, according to Pew Research Institute. That's simply unacceptable that there would be that many people who identify themselves as Christians yet still commit the sin. And forget if they're not even a Christian, they'll just indulge in it more. Okay? Before I go any further, I just want to lay out, I'm not saying don't have sex. Sex is a gift from God. It's a good thing when you're married, but before then it is a sin. My purpose of this speech is to influence you guys to wait until have sex until marriage. And I have 4 points to express that. First is that God tells us so in the Word. 2, because premarital sex can lead to much destruction. 3, waiting to have sex till marriage makes a marriage more happier, proven, and it's more unified, more special in that way. And 4th, we must not be like the world and indulge in sexual immorality. So with our point number 1, I'm going to share a Bible verse with you guys. Hebrews 13:4 says, "Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexual immoral and adulterous." This verse, among several others, goes to show you cannot have sex before marriage. It is a sin. It's very black and white on what it shares, okay? And simply put, if you believe in Jesus, you can't have sex before marriage. Like I said earlier, there's 62% of people who identify themselves as Christian and have sex before marriage. That's unacceptable. It's you can raise all sorts of questions on your John 14:15 says, "If you love me, you obey my commandments." Really clear. If you love the Lord, you cannot commit this sin and act like it's okay. Recently, Jonathan Paluca came to a pastor from Texas. He came and spoke, and he said, too easily we're entertained by the things that Jesus died for, died on the cross for. And I think this is an example where too easily we're just indulging in having sex before marriage when the Lord died for that to not do that. Also to go with that, you'll feel guilty. David in the Bible had sex with Bathsheba, and in Psalm 51:4 said, "Against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight." David simply felt guilty for what he'd done. And also I found many anonymous articles from anonymous writers that say, I've had difficult conversations with my husband or wife saying, "I am not a virgin, you are, you don't deserve me," etc., things of that nature. And ultimately, these people who do love Jesus and have made this mistake feel very guilty, and it leads to destruction. Which goes to my next point, is that there's so many negatives of premarital sex that can bring destruction. All right, in a recent survey by the American Psychology Association, they interviewed almost 1,500 undergraduates in school. 82.6 reported feeling either embarrassed, emotional difficulties with partner, and a loss of respect. That's 4/5 of people who have said they've regretted having sex with a partner in the past, which is unacceptable. Also, a very sad statistic is, according to the New York Post, 52% of women confess they've had better sex with their ex than with their current husband. Simply unacceptable, and really a fact that gets me very sad. Also, some more negatives to premarital sex are STDs. 1 in 5 of Americans have or are infected with 1 or more STD. 12 million are newly affected every year, according to the Medical Institute of Sexual Health. And lastly, unwanted pregnancies is also can be a negative for a family and not unexpected. My third point I want to make is when couples wait, their marriage is more special, more unified, and ultimately more happy. Okay, an online assessment, according to the Journal of Family Psychology, and an online assessment of over 2,000 people, people who waited to have sex until marriage had 15% had better quality, 22% had better relationship stability, 20% rated higher satisfaction with the relationship. Amongst those all, better communication, better stability, better quality, better satisfaction, all for the couple who waits rather than give in to the temptation. Mark Regnerus, a PhD of the University of Texas, and he's also the author of a book called Premarital Sex in America. He was unrelated to the study, also said, quote, relationship is underdeveloped when couples prioritize sex as the outset of their relationship. Just another further example of waiting until marriage makes the marriage better. Since 2000, this is an also alarming statistic. Since 2000, women with two partners have a 30% divorce rate in the first 5 years of marriage, and it's a direct correlation when you have almost 10 partners. Much higher divorce rates versus 0, very low, and the lowest there is. I also want to point out the verse, 1 Corinthians 13:4, which simply says, love is patient. Love waits. Waiting till the marriage is the right thing to do. Over and over in Scripture it says that. My last point I want to make is that we must be not like the world, okay? We must set a good example. Like I said earlier, 3% of people wait to have sex until marriage, and 65 identify themselves as Christian. That's unacceptable. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, set an example for the believers in speech and conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. We must be the light of the world, have a good example. James 4:4 says, if anyone is a friend of the world, he becomes an enemy of God. All over, especially in the New Testament, it says we must not be like the world. We have to stand out and be different, and this is a prime way of where we say, no, I'm not going to indulge in that. I'm not going to indulge in that, and I'll stand out, and that's what a Christian should do. Yes. And lastly, you'll glorify God ultimately. God will be proud. We can't do sexual immorality. We have to stand up. God will be happy we did. To conclude, my 4 points were: 1, don't have sex before marriage because God tells us so. 2, that it can bring much destruction. The negatives of it. 3, the marriage is marriage is undefiled. It's bad to do. It makes it happier than marriage. And my last point: we must not be like the world in adult and sexual immorality. I think this topic really needs to be addressed. Like I said, it's unhealthy to do. It needs to be addressed. And not only will you honor yourself, your wife, but also God, most importantly. Wife or husband, when you wait. So I'm hopeful that I can influence you to wait and have sex before marriage.